Okay, we are now in the fourth shir of the halachos of Elul, and we're in the middle of Siman Kuf Ches in the Kitzur. We're up to Sif Hey. So now we're moving on a little bit. We're going to try to go a little bit quicker. We're moving on now to the halachos of Slichos. Okay, so there's different minhagim of how it's done. Some people start Rish Chodesh Elul, so they do it for a full 30 months. Siman Kuf Ches Sif Hey. Some people do it for a full 30 days. And they also do it, I think, at like 5 or 4:30 in the morning. So if you go to, there's a shola with Rabbi Buzzy, some of you guys, or he wasn't going to teach you guys. Yeah, it's like Sephardi Chabad, and they do it for the full month, I think 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, they already start doing slichas for the whole month. So we don't do that. We don't want to torture you guys. So we only do it for a little bit before Rosh Hashanah, like we'll see, and we'll talk about it a little bit here. So first of all, by the way, before we get into even what we do, just so you know, just a little tidbit of information, Slichus itself, there is no Chabad official. Slichus means supplications, asking Hashem to forgive you. Just so you know, there's no official Chabad type of structure to Slichus. Now, when you go to Kahas, they sell slichas, right? So where did that come from? So that came from much, much later when the Rebbe actually put it together. I think it was before the Rebbe was Rebbe, so it was when he was in America already. So it was in the 40s when the Rebbe was taking over Kahas. So part of what he did is he structured the slichas in the way that it is. And there's a story that they say with the Rebbe Rasham that he once joined. The Frierdiker Rebbe says this, I believe, that he once joined the slichas and the Chazan skipped over a part. Why? Because the way it used to be is they would take slichas from whatever they had printed around. So this guy skipped over a certain part and he thought we don't say it. So later the Rebbe Rashab said, what happened? Did you say this thing? So he says, no, he didn't say it. So the Rebbe Rashab said two things. Number one, he said, nowadays people don't say what they're supposed to say. Okay, that's a side point. But then he said, it's been a long time that I wanted to organize the slichas, but I Pashin didn't have the time to make it according to the way it's supposed to be. So that's where it stayed. And then the Rebbe actually went and put together the slichas the way we had. So that's why if you look in the beginning of the Kahas, you'll notice that before the actual slichas, there's one page that has an order, almost like a checklist of what you're supposed to say when. And that's because the Rebbe put this order first, and then eventually it was turned into something. Nuschos are an interesting thing. The Rebbe, Alter Rebbe put together the Siddur was a very particular type of nusach. A lot of other things, they would use whatever Ashkenazi people did. Our davening is more Sfardi. It works along with more the Rambam and the Shalot. It's more of Kabbalistic type of davening. But slichas, they follow whatever was contemporary in the whatever they had printed in those days from the Ashkenazi communities, Worms, Mains. There were certain communities that were very big Ashkenazi communities, and that was the nusach that they followed. Okay, that's just a little information for us to work with. So now let's get into Sifhei. From already the Sunday before Rosh Hashanah, mashkimin means that you wake up early. Like you know that Avraham Avinu was hashkim abayker, so he woke up super early. So officially, slichas is supposed to be very, very early in the morning, and we'll come back. We're in Sif Hey, and we'll come back to this a little bit later in the Sif, where we see the implication that if you're doing slichas so early in the morning, what does that mean? Now, let's say Rosh Hashanah falls out on a Monday or a Tuesday, which this year Rosh Hashanah falls out on a Tuesday, I believe is Rosh Hashanah. So then, then you do slichis the week before. So here's a very simple way how to remember this. There's two parts to this. Number one, that Rosh Hashanah can never fall out the first day on anyone know?
It can never be on a
Sunday, Wednesday, or Thursday, maybe?
Not bad.
Friday.
So this is the way to remember. It's a little acronym. It says Loy Adu Rosh. Loy Adu Rosh. Adu is Aleph Dalet Vav, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Rosh means Rosh Hashanah. So Loy Adu Rosh. Rosh Hashanah can never fall out the first day. It just means not. Adu Aleph Dalet Vav, Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah can never fall out on Aleph Dalet or Vav, which is Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. So now like this. So when the halacha says that if Rosh Hashanah falls out on a Sunday, on a Monday, or a Tuesday, that's the only possibility that it could be. If it's not going to be a Sunday, a Monday, or a Tuesday, then it's going to be Thursday. Okay, Thursday would be the earliest. So why is that important? Because now, like this, why would we start the week before? So some people say that the Yemei Slichos are days that we fast and we kind of do tshuva. Now, in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, people have a minhag that they like to fast during the Aseret Simei Tshuva and do tshuva. Now, what days would be excluded from that? 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, 1 day of Shabbos, and 1 day of Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur, there's a mitzvah you have to eat. Okay, so we'll get there later when we get to it. So there's 4 days. Wait, so there's 4 days automatically that you're not allowed to fast. So we make up those 4 days by doing slichas before Rosh Hashanah at least 4 days. Now, what does it mean at least 4 days? That means Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now, Rosh Hashanah can never fall out on a Wednesday. So if it fell out on a Monday or a Tuesday, you're never going to get 4 days unless it falls out on a Thursday or a Friday or a Shabbos. Sorry. So therefore, if it's going to be less than 4 days, we're going to start the week before. So this year, Rosh Hashanah is on a Tuesday. We're going to start the week before, and we're going to have it's second to longest, I guess, that you could have. We're going to have, I think it's 7 days of slichas or something like that, or 8 days, 8 days maybe. Yeah, no, and then 1 day of Erev Rosh Hashanah. You're supposed to do minimum of 4 days. So, and you start on Sunday. You'll see soon why. We always start on Sunday. So, wait a second. We always start on, that's the minig of Ashkenazic and Chabad. We start Sunday. The Sfardim start from Rosh Chodesh. Some people start from, I heard, I think I saw somewhere from maybe Chai Elul, but nothing to do with Chabad Chai Elul. I think it just has to do with 12 days before, and each day is for a month. There's different, they have different minhagim, but that's the minig that we follow.
I just learned that.
Okay. Oh, we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, let's go weiter. What? Rosh Hashanah cannot fall out on a Sunday, the first day. So because it just, the calendar is set up in a way that it's never going to happen. Okay, let's go further. Now, so therefore you start from the week before. Now, what happens when you wake up and the word mashkimin means very early, which means while it's still dark outside, basically. So now you have a funny situation. It's not so well. In the winter, by the way, here it's still dark at 6:30 is before at least really. So what's or even later, even 7. So what's the question here? Question is like this: when you wake up and it's light outside, there's no question. You do everything normal. You wake up, you do meida'ani, you do brachas, you wash your hands. Everything is perfect. It's light outside. If it's not yet light outside, then there's a lot of brachas that you have a challenge to say. You're going to say a bracha when the rooster crows. The rooster didn't crow yet. It's too early. It's before Alois. Yeah, or when whatever, different things that you say in the brachas. Let's say the bracha of Birchas HaTorah. The Birchas HaTorah, depending on, okay, I'll get to this in a second. So now what happens is like this. You wake up early in the morning and it's still dark outside. So what do? So number one, you do Netilas Yadayim. That you could do regardless. And you make a bracha al Netilas Yadayim. We're not going to get into this now for the reasons of why you wash Netilas Yadayim in the morning. But for whatever the reason is, you make a bracha. And you also do Birchas HaTorah. You're also going to say the Birchas HaTorah. Now here they add from the Alter Rebbe, from the Siddur, where the Alter Rebbe says, V'chein kol seder habrachas. You also say the normal order of all the brachas that you do in the morning. Which means like this: if you went to sleep and you wake up after chatzos, even though it's not yet morning, you do the whole brachas. You do everything. And it says that the Rebbe Rashab would wake up, let's say, Erev Yom Kippur. The Rebbe writes this in his Rishimas Yaman, which means the notes that he took when he was hanging out in Europe next to Fidik Rebbe. So over there he writes that the Rebbe Rashab woke up Erev Yom Kippur very early, obviously, I shouldn't say that. That very early in the morning he said the whole brachas before it got light outside, and he said Birchas HaTorah a little bit later. And B'Pashtus, the reason is because he didn't actually go to sleep the night before. So brachas he was mechuyev, most of them, because it's a new day. But the Birchas HaTorah he was still yetzer from the night before. So he waited till the next day and he did it. But either way, the minig is from the Alter Rebbe that you say the whole Seder HaBrachas. You would exclude a few things. Number one, some people you're not wearing shoes in the morning. Yeah, next thing to do that before when we start, yeah? That the number one, you're not wearing shoes in the morning. So you can't really say Sha'asali called Sarki. And number two, it's a little too early to hear the rooster crow. So you can't really say Hanaysein Sachbi Labino. So there's a So there's certain things that you can't really say, but most of it you do, and that will say, even though it's very early in the morning. Okay, let's move along. When you finish slichos, so then according to this halacha, not the way we paskin, they would litu yedayim shenis, they would wash their hands again. Like bracha without a bracha. However, according to Alter Rebbe in the Siddur, you don't have to wash your hands again. If you slept and you washed your hands, so then there's a few reasons why you wash your hands, but you satisfied all of them, so you don't have to wash your hands after that again. Now, the minig nowadays is that we don't do slichas that early in the morning anymore. We do slichas when it's already basically light outside. Again, everyone has different minhagim, but if you remember, even here, let's say this year, you guys are going to come, you're going to learn siddur for. I don't know, you do slichas before siddur, I think, but even then, it's already light outside for quite a long time. And Cheder last year, if you guys remember, you did slichas close to almost 9 o'clock in the morning. So nowadays, the minig is the place can bring that we're not so makbid to do it while it's still dark outside, or later. You can even do it later. You can even do it a little bit later, and it would be fine as well. Okay, Sivav, yeah, good. Sivav is like this. Shliach hatzibur sha'omer slichas. What happens about the chazan who's doing the slichas? So yisates betalis, even though it's not part of davening. However, he'll put on a talis, and this is because the mashal says that when Moshe Rabbeinu was davening to Hashem, so some people say that it says vayavar Hashem al panav, that he asked Hashem that he wants to see Hashem's glory, and Hashem passed in front of him. And the place can bring the Medrash brings, I believe, that when he passed before him, he was like a zaken that was misatev bitalis. Yeah, it says that it was a Kadosh Baruch Hu was nisatev kishatz. That was the expression. That nisatev HaKadosh Baruch Hu kishliach tzibur, that Hashem was wearing a talis like a chazan. So because of that, you see that this idea of asking Hashem when we daven to Hashem, so also you want to do it, that it should be, you should be wearing a talis. Now the problem is, okay, this is also a talis that's mitzu yetzetz, meaning it's a kosher talis, and you put this on kodim sheyaschil ashrei, before you start doing this. Now the problem is like this. If it's in the morning, let's say you're going to come here, Rabbi Thaler is going to put on his talis, it's not an issue. Why is it not an issue? Because it's already light outside. So he makes a bracha, he puts on his talis, he'll put it on the side, and when it comes to davening, he'll put the talis back on, and lav davka will he make another bracha. He could, if he wants to,
Sure.
but he doesn't have to make another bracha. Why doesn't he have to make another bracha? He doesn't have to make another bracha because you're allowed to make a pause. You make the bracha, and he was wearing it tzitzis the whole time, also according to Alter Rebbe. So it's not a problem. Later on, he'll put it back on. The issue is like this, that the first night for us and for other people, if it's still the middle of the night, you're not allowed to put on tefillin. It's not tefillin. You're not allowed to put on tzitzis. It's a question if you could put on tzitzis by night and if you make a bracha on it, because laila by night is lav dafka, a time for tzitzis. So you have a famous machlekes, but we're not going to get into that. But the point is that you have a little bit of an issue over here. On one hand, he has to put on a talis. On the other hand, he's not allowed to make a bracha. But if he puts on his talis, then he should make a bracha, but he can't make a bracha. So you have this whole suffix. So says the Kitzur, because there's a doubt that if a person puts on his own talis, by night, do you make a bracha? Or you don't make a bracha. So we have a solution. Don't take your own talis. Borrow a talis. But the gam talis alcohol. You're also not allowed to take the talis that belongs to the congregation. Why not? He doesn't explain here. But the way it works is that when the congregation buys a talis, let's say you have a Chabad house and you buy a bunch of talisim. When you buy those talisim, the intention is that when someone comes into the Chabad house and they need to put on a talis or borrow a talis, it becomes theirs for the time that they use it. So the whole thing we're trying to do is get away from you owning the talis, and this way you don't have to make a bracha. But if you put on the one that's owned by the community, then you own it also. So you have the same problem. So therefore, don't use yours and don't use the shul's. What should you do? You should borrow someone else's talis. And if you borrow someone else's talis, you don't have to make a bracha on it if it's not like a matana menasasa. If you're just borrowing it, you could get away with not making a bracha. So that's what you do. Now, what happens? Let's say there's no talis, or for example, if a bacher is going to do it, some bacher don't like to wear a talis. Some do wear a talis. We'll talk maybe another time. But by day, some do, especially if it's for this. Some don't. But either way, let's say it's a married person who usually does wear a talis, and over here they don't find the talis, so it's no problem. Technically, you could do the regular slichas. You could say the shlish esrei midas, which are the main part of slichas. You could also do it without a talis. It's not a problem. Now, some people have a minig that once the guy is a chazan for slichas, so we make him to be chazan for the rest of the day. And it's a very strong minig, to the point that he would even be chazan before an avil, before the mayal, and before someone who has yartzeit that day. That's how strong this minig was. Now, why don't we do that? if you'll notice, a lav dafka, whoever does slichas, it's probably, I think it's Rabbi Thaler, lav dafka will be chazan the rest of the day. So nowadays it's not such a minig anymore because it used to be that whoever was chazan was being yaitz of the congregation, the community, yeah? But now it doesn't work that way anymore. Nowadays, everyone basically davens for themselves. So we're not as strict about it like we used to be. Also, it used to be, like we mentioned, that people would fast, especially during these days of slichas. So we don't know if everyone's fasting, but the guy that was chazan for slichas for sure used to fast. So for him, he'll then go and be chazan for the rest of the davenings, and this way he could say anenu and whatever else he's going to do in that way. Okay, but again, nowadays it's not such a mitig anymore because number one, I guess we don't really fast, and number two is that everyone davens for themselves, so you don't have to honor the same guy. Fine. Now, how does Siv Vav continue? It is a good thing to try to stand during the entirety of slichus. You're asking Hashem to forgive you. It's a very important time. You should stand. But let's say it's difficult for someone to stand, someone older, someone who's hurt, or whatever it is. So then at least for these specific times of slichus, which are the most important parts, for those you should stand if you could. Fine. Dina miras avidoy. When it comes to vidoy, which is basically tachnon, ayla kamansim kuf lamed aleph. So I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure what he's referencing here, but there are those that actually do slichas a few times. They do tachnon, or if you want to call it vidoy, a few times during slichas. But our minhag we only do it once. So that's the way the Rebbe explains it. I think it's from the Rebbe, I'm not mistaken, or maybe the Alter Rebbe, but it's for sure part of our nusach. We only do it once. Okay, weiter. Let's go further. Sif Yud. Siv Zayin. So now we're going to talk about what it means. Who do you choose to be chazan? So during the most of the year, in general, you try to get someone that's appropriate to be chazan. Next time, please bring a kitzur. Yeah, you generally go and you bring someone that is that has a knows how to we call shliach tzibur. You want it to be chazan, and but during the time of Tishrei, it's especially important, especially for slichas and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You want to have an appropriate type of chazan. So I heard actually there were two things. Number one, I heard it says from the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's brought down that he once said an expression like this. He said that bali tfilos al pi roiv mezake es harabim v'chazan al pi roiv machti harabim. It's a very harsh expression, but it means like this: that a bal tefillah, someone who's a proper type of chazan, who the davening is very sincere, on a majority they bring schus to the congregation. They help the congregation. But someone who's a chazan, like when you imagine someone who's all into the singing, so al pi roiv they're machti es harabim. They bring, unfortunately, if you want to say avedis. Now, no. So you have to know what that means. I think what it means is I'll bring another story first. I was by my in-laws in a place called Ranch Raj, and they have Rebbe that visit sometimes, just like here, you'll see in the winter. So one guy came, he was called the Skolyer Rebbe. So we made a minyan for him Friday night. It was hard for him to walk, and no one, it was a small minyan, so we walked to where he was, not so far. And the chazan there was very very pleasant type of chazan. So after he went to introduce himself, so he tells him, he goes, he's a nice guy, the Skolyer Rebbe. So he says, you daven, so he tells him, mit hearts, like, did you daven with feeling? So the guy starts telling him where he was trained. He trained in this place and that way. So he smiled and he says, "Aber mit Harz." That's the only thing he really cared about. In other words, when it comes to chazan and about tefillah, there's a big difference. About tefillah, obviously it has to be someone pleasant that you could listen to that doesn't throw everyone off. But the real inyan of about tefillah is someone who davens, not someone who's singing the songs in the best way possible. Now, it happens to be that, Mashal, I'm sure in this class, there's a couple of good chazanim that are also balei tefillah. So that's what we hope, is that you have someone that could sing, and they also are very good people. But it could be that it's not like that. It could be someone's hired like an opera singer. So there you have to make sure that the person that you're hiring is also someone that has the qualities that we're going to mention tomorrow. And it's very important, even though we said before that the chazan today, nowadays, what we call the shliach tzibur, doesn't lead the everyone davens on their own, right? So you don't really need the guy to represent you per se, but he is representing the tzibur in some way, and he's helping the tzibur daven. So therefore, you want someone that has all the qualities that we're going to mention tomorrow. Okay? Everyone, any questions on that? Okay.
No.